Because Fox News and the right do everything they can to be contrarian to science and cutting into corporate profit margins, for around probably a month prior to the CDC announcement, they had been calling for mask lifting because if the vaccines work, then it's disgusting and irresponsible to force people to still wear the mask, or even recommend they do so. 2 weeks ago, the CDC finally lifted the national legal need for indoor mask wearing for vaccinated people. Of course, this wasn't good enough for the right wing, because instead of celebrating their phony crusade to end masking and letting businesses reopen, they called it a distraction tactic. The right aside, I see some who are freaking out that the indoor maskless bans have been lifted, as the case rate is still not 0%. I understand entirely. You still have a 5 to 10% chance of catching it vaccinated, and perhaps up to 30% with some strains, as the J&J vaccine research had shown, and a lower but not zero chance of spreading it once caught. It's possible. Many are still wearing masks as the trauma of the pandemic is still set in. To be honest, there are no perfect solutions, and the ethics are all a mess due to so many factors. However, at this point, the CDC has taken the many calculations compared to the pre-pandemic norm that people are unaware of and decided it's just as safe a risk to go maskless for vaccinated people as it was before the pandemic. They are hoping to boost the dwindling number of people who aren't getting vaccinated, as going maskless safely will be a reward for getting it. And with the anti-vaxxers, you just can't fix stupid, so they're on their own. Their death is on their own head. That said, when people heard Fauci, they heard, we all don't have to wear masks even if we aren't vaccinated because no one is checking, which has increased the death rate by around 100 a day, as one should expect sadly, but the numbers are still falling as vaccination is working. However, just because places can legally reopen maskless doesn't mean individuals or companies can't keep their mask policies in place. Unlike what the right likes to claim, it's not a cult. There are many reasons to still stay masked up. For one, we don't know if you can still get long COVID after getting vaccinated. It will take a few more months to find out the data on that. Long COVID is a condition many with severe and some mild COVID sufferers deal with, where they continue to have poor breathing and fatigue long after the body has cleared it for over a year now, and doctors have no idea as to why. For another, people who are immunocompromised have been found to make 1/3 the antibodies the average person makes, which could potentially make them susceptible to long COVID with just mild symptoms. And lastly, many other airborne diseases still exist. I will start wearing mine if I feel even a little sick to prevent the spread of disease, just like they have done in Asia for decades, reducing the flu spread. We are down to the death rates of the flu, so the CDC has decided to take the libertarian approach to mandates and relax the legal requirements for them. Now it's up to the individual to decide. Sadly, I know quite a few places that didn't actually read the CDC guidelines and have a friend who went to a medical clinic and no one was masked, with the nurse claiming they were following CDC guidelines. Spoilers, they were not. Once we can determine if vaccinated folks can't get long COVID, which can essentially make them nearly disabled with a lethargy and poor breathing, then we should be able to all safely unmask without fear if we are vaccinated. We finally are now reaching the flu death territory. 150 to 250 Americans die of the flu daily. Well, except for this year when masks stopped it dead in its tracks. It just happens, and we all seem to be okay with those levels. Sunday, May 9th's COVID death rate was 262. It's literally a cost-benefit analysis, and we seem to be okay with these levels of flu, so why not COVID? The hospitals won't be clogged, so people won't die now of treatable issues. That was one of the biggest killers of this process. Also, we now have monoclonal antibodies, which can act as a cure in most cases if administered early enough. No more oxygen shortage or masking supplies either. There were a ton of factors that made us decide to mask up and social distance, but if you aren't okay with living like you did with the flu, with COVID, then by all means stay masked indoors. Asians do it all the time when they're sick, which is great. It also saves lives in terms of the flu. I will still be wearing my mask if I get sick as a courtesy, and I really hope this sticks. Some groups, such as nurses and retail unions, disagree. Nurses aren't epidemiologists, they're techs who have had terrible personal experiences and not the bird's eye view. I understand their fears of another spike. they still have trauma and fear from this past year that have left them with PTSD. PTSD is when your brain adapts to be best at a terrible situation, but makes it really difficult to impossible to deal with non-traumatic events and overreact emotionally to them. It makes the brain much less plastic and unable to deal with change well. The CDC has calculated rightly or wrongly that lifting the maskless ban for the vaccinated will probably, via past data, increase the number of vaccinated as a reward for getting the vaccine. We can't live life with zero risk. We didn't do it before. We can't do it now. I do feel for the people who can't get vaccinated, but they've had to take similar precautions with flu and other airborne germs. There is no perfect solution to this, and the CDC apparently has decided if people were okay with these risk levels prior to the pandemic, they should be fine with these risks now. That said, apparently the ignorance toward long COVID as a threat from mild cases is not considered by the CDC scary enough to shut down commerce, which is pretty normal for the US. It's legal till proven dangerous. Caveat emptor, and dump externalities on the average person so companies can make money. However, this is a lot of trauma from the pandemic and may take months to change the maskless mindset. Fox is mad that scientists aren't decrying these people as COVID deniers and anti-science as well. At the beginning of the pandemic, we had to train ourselves to automatically social distance and mask up. Now we're going to have to retrain ourselves to not get emotional fear responses when we get close to someone unmasked. This is not something we can change overnight. It is a habit that was created for very good reasons. Because of this, while I will go maskless now where the CDC says I can, I will also be polite and wear a mask around masked people, or would if I didn't have immunocompromised people in my life, which means I'll pretty much be masked up unless outside. There are so many reasons to still mask. These people may still have fear, but they could also be immunocompromised or have loved ones who are and can't get the vaccine. Or they could just have a cold and are being considerate not to spread it around, and being considerate to your fellow human beings is apparently a cult according to the right. So as always, thank you all for watching this as a video or listening to this as a podcast, which I'm sure was completely uncontroversial to anyone, especially to the YouTube monetization team. So if you found this useful, please donate to my Patreon. Just a reminder that I'm Anubis2814 on YouTube, and I have almost 700 videos on my channel that I've made over the past 11 years on religion, science, psychology, and politics. Please go check them out, and if your site has the option, like, rate, review, and comment. A special thanks goes out to Kendall Copperberg, Ogrel, Elias Garcia Guevara, and Joe Taylor for their $10 or more Wapawet level donations. I'm always humbled by the fact that they find my work worth funding and worth driving me forward. Thank you all. Please consider donating to my work if you can, and thank you all for listening.